At cases such as individuals who post bare chest and naked breast and nipples in solidarity for Breast Cancer Awareness Month that by our community standards previously would have been flagged and taken down. Why? Because we're not a platform of pornography. We're a platform that takes those things down. But you can obviously see there's nuance here. But these are new platforms on the face of this planet. So how do you build a system that would understand the nuance of someone that is posting a nipple for pornographic means, or someone that's doing it for science and or solidarity around medical intervention? The oversight board took that case. They took a series of cases in the aggregate and determined that we, Meta, need to harden our policies and that we do need to put the nuances there and then build the product in a way that will best understand it.
What's up, brother? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to a very special conversation of the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited for a couple of reasons to be in conversation with a good friend of mine. It's rare that I get a chance to interview my good friends. And so I can honestly say that this gentleman I'm about to introduce is a really dear good friend of mine. And how we became friends was through work. This individual, we first met underneath the Obama administration, and we have always enjoyed this public-private partnership, if you will. Under the Obama administration, when I was appointed to be the My Brother's Keeper ambassador, he was my project manager, if you will, for simple non-governmental terms on the inside, and I was on the outside doing it. And together, we both created some fantastic programming in order to get young men of color to really see themselves as entrepreneurship through lifestyle. And that is really what formed the friendship and such an incredible working partnership. From there, I'll speed the story along to talk to you about why we are having this conversation today. I'm excited to announce that I am now in partnership with Meta. And with partnership with Meta, we are going to create a 3-city tour. We're going to go to New York City, Los Angeles, and London. That's right, the UK. We are coming to see you. How cool is that? All around the conversation is around AI, big data, machine learning, and all the tech policy that's associated with that. And this literally couldn't come at a better time. Literally, I'm just coming off air recently, and the number one question that we get for Ask Mike is about AI, artificial intelligence, the danger of it. Talk to me, Mike, about this metaverse. Talk about the dangers of it. I even had a question yesterday where a caller called up and he was like, hey, Mike, I'm really concerned about AI. There was a rapper and a producer that was on social media discussing that maybe rappers and MCs should start trying to find ways to IP their voice because of the AI technology. And so he was really concerned about that. And I'm like, yo, if you can just stay tuned for one more week, I got you. It's going to be a big announcement for us to get involved with. So today's show is one about the announcement. I'm super excited, but really, audience, we finally get the chance together as an audience to unpack AI and what does it mean? What is technology, big tech, governance, Section 230, all the things you guys are asking for. The purpose of us is to really make this tour, all those topics, really digestible. I am so sick of people being intimidated by conversation around AI and big data. It doesn't need to be. And the reason why it's been so intimidating is because we use these big words, right? And so it makes people feel like they can't participate in the conversation. But this is how we get bad policy. And this is how we get rogue actors in the space of technology doing rogue things, because there's not enough of us holding individuals, companies, agencies accountable. But this is why this Meta tour is about to kick off. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you the senior manager and head of partnership of governance at Meta, Mr. Christopher Upperman. What's up, Chris?
Man, it's always good to see you, Mike Muse. You're a real friend, real partner, real collaborator. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited for this opportunity. We have been working for so many years, and what I've always been enthusiastic about is how we very intentionally find ways to work with each other. There are big problems in society today, and there have been, and it really takes people coming together to work to bring the best of where we are, whatever industry we're in, together to solve these big problems. And I'm at Meta. I'm in the governance organization, the head of our partnerships, which really what that is actually our relationship manager, our strategic partnerships, our strategic initiatives head. I'm really thinking about ways that we can tackle some of the biggest problems in society. It's a platform of 3.7 billion users globally. I'm not sure that everybody's familiar. Meta is WhatsApp, it's Instagram, it's Facebook Messenger, it's Oculus now with the metaverse and the AR VR. We'll get into that. Instagram and Facebook Blue, the original Facebook back when I was in college, that thing kicked off. That's a lot. That's a lot of products touching a lot of lives, and a lot of content is on these platforms. So I'm in the organization that really tackles these issues, that really looks to hold ourselves accountable. We're really looking to empower users to set the standards and set some terms and to hold us accountable, and also outside organizations. So I'm really, really excited about this partnership because you said it best. These can be intimidating conversations. These policy conversations can be really nuanced, and there's a depth to them because it's serious business. But in reality, there are things that people can understand about these conversations. And quite honestly, that's what we wanted to do. I've always known you as someone that is at that intersection of making it digestible, making it palatable. How do we get a broader coalition of people to understand these really serious topics and conversations? And so we at Meta, and particularly in the governance organization, we saw you as one of these validators, one of these individuals we knew we could trust with these conversations. Bring in some new audience, bring in new partners and players and people who are thinking about this, creatively. You're in the entertainment space and in the media space. There's a whole subset of conversation that spans this. So I'm just excited to be here.
I'm excited too, man. And kind of just expanding upon that, and I think about accepting responsibility for that is because what you guys understood, and me agreeing to be the partner to help you guys curate this conversation, is that in that beginning, I was like, I'm also going to hold you guys accountable too. That this isn't just a free pass or a big infomercial for Meta. And I love that how you guys agreed to that, because you guys, what I've been really impressed with you is that, in the tech policy world that I exist in, we're always trying to figure out who is going to govern these big tech platforms. We always talk about, Congress, and Congress doesn't really understand technology and the nuance of it. And I'm not knocking Congress because the rate of technology changes so fast. So anytime you can put a policy, well, one, we all know the sausage making process takes forever. Right. And so by the time the sausage making of a bill gets made and approved, that technology was almost 2 years ago that the policy is trying to govern. We're 2 years ahead now. So almost that policy is almost irrelevant because now we're on to another thing that the technology has advanced. So the question me and my peers have always discussed was, who is going to govern? Right? Does there need to be a regulatory agency? Does another department? Do we need to get former executives at big tech to kind of govern that? But the reason why I like you guys, because you guys went first with your own governing body. Talk to me a little bit about your own governing body that you guys have and why that was important, and if it really is non-partial.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why Mike Muse is Mike Muse. He did his homework. He already came with it. Honestly, we have a governing body, first of its kind. We have the oversight board. I mean, as I mentioned before, we have really taken serious our responsibility. Once again, a platform of 3.7 billion users across this entire planet. I mean, there's nothing like it on the face of this earth. Nothing's existed. What we recognized is not only is there millions and billions of pieces of organic content that is on our platform, there's all types of conversation, there's all types of imagery, there's all types of dialogue and things that are going on. Who ultimately gets to say what that is and where that will live and how that will reside on the platform? Originally, that's just been us. That's been our founder, Mark Zuckerberg. But he alone has said he doesn't want to be the sole voice. He doesn't want to be the individual to litigate and determine what pieces of content live on our platform. I mean, it's the town square, right? Is there someone that's sitting there and saying, you could say that, and you could say that, and no, stop, let's be quiet here, and no. Honestly, we wanted to look at a way to bring more accountability to our structures. And in particular, what we did, first of its kind, industry leading, we established the oversight board. What this is, for those who may not be familiar with this, is almost like a digital Supreme Court. think about how right now the Supreme Court is the highest court in our land here in the United States. They take a look at cases that will have really seismic level impact on our society, right? The same goes on with the oversight board. They are taking in appeals from users on our platform. They've netted above 1 million plus appeals to that body saying, I'm not sure why this piece of content was taken down. I don't agree with it. Can you take a look at it? And what they do is they take a look at these things in the aggregate. We have a process where we work with them to get cases. They get cases. They take a look. They deliberate internally.
Yeah.
It's impartial. They're an independent body. So the one thing that I really do want to say about this is it's an independent body that we established with a trust, an irrevocable amount of funds that we gave this to exist on its own.
Yeah.
23 global members, Nobel laureates, legal scholars, humanitarians, human rights scholars, all types of amazing individuals that are on this body, and they hold us to account. And guess what? It's only the first step. There's a lot of work to be done here.
What I love, though, is that audience, before I actually agreed to take it, actually had asked for a dinner with 2 individuals from the oversight board, and one represented from India, and another one was from the Netherlands. And I had the chance to really ask them questions because before I agreed to do this, I wanted to know how serious was this. And when I tell you the thoughts that they have about Meta unto itself, I was like, oh, this legit is like
right.
Impartial. I was like, I don't think y'all like Meta.
There's a collegiality there. I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, do y'all really like this company? And that's what I knew was right, because you want people around you to challenge you to make you better. And then I think that was a good thing about it, because we don't exist in isolation. So let's just speed along, because you said so many great things. You mentioned the Supreme Court. And so let's just talk about something that's happening right now around Section 230, because I really want to lean into content moderation. Because, audience, most important, Chris just said, I'm gonna break the wall and look at the camera. Chris has mentioned Instagram. You guys use WhatsApp. You use Facebook. You guys are already using this stuff. So you guys are already in the metaverse. You guys are already using AI. So this is why it's important for us to really engage in this conversation. But really at this core is conversation. Another caller called up and asked me about Section 230 in the Supreme Court and my thoughts on that. And we are going to have a Section 230 person that's going to be a part of our tour to really break that down. But talk to us. Don't weigh in on whether or not Section 230 should be around or shouldn't be around. But if you can, Chris, talk to us just a little bit of why Section 230 exists for that platforms like Meta, like Google, like YouTube, like TikTok can exist.
Totally. And I'll just say out the gate, I'm not the Section 230 expert.
But we're just tapping into it.
But in general, I mean, I wanted to kind of give you some of the understanding.
And just so you know, Chris, my audience is already primed for this. I've already had the expert on 2 times at the Mike Muse show.
Okay,
so
all right.
Just a little flex.
Right, it is a little flex.
My audience is ready for you.
No, totally. Look, Section 230 is a piece of legislation that governs media, and it governs content. And quite honestly, the simplistic way to think about it is that it is a piece of a rule package, if you will, that does not hold platforms accountable for what's posted on it. Fundamentally.
Yeah. So basically, audience, what that means is that if Chris, let's use a neutral example. Let's say Instagram, but that's not neutral because that is you guys. Let's use Instagram. If Chris was to say something about me on Instagram that was very negative, I can't sue Instagram because Chris said something. I need to sue Chris in order to get my case made. Right. And so what happens is that Section 30 absolves big tech platforms from the ability to being sued, because if that was the case, there would be so many people coming after you guys. But this is the part of the conversation that we want to have with the world audience, is that should that be in process? Should that stand? Should it be amended or should it not be amended?
Right.
If it is amended, what happens to it? And then what happens to us as a user? Because users, everybody, there is just like physics, right? There's like when you push back, when you push on something, the inertia actually pushes back on you. So there's a cause and response, right? And there's a cost for that, right? So if you was to amend it, how then would that impact the users in the end? But then if you don't amend it, how still does that impact users in the end? The ideal audience is for us to get just to have an understanding of what it is, and then to put the power back in our hands to either push these big tech companies and or push legislation for Section 230 to either A, be protected, protected or to be weakened for a lot of these other moments to happen. But I think this is the beauty of this tour that we're about to embark on, because we're going to get into that kind of conversations.
Absolutely. And one thing that I want to add to that point, because right now Section 230 is with the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
We expect that there will be some ruling of sorts. Who knows? Supreme Court can make a decision this cycle. They can determine this later. They can kick the can and say, oh, we want to kind of address this down the line. But the reality is that in the past we've actually called for wanting to be regulated. But the reality is that we are already in a regulatory environment in Meta and also within the technology space. We have the DSA over in the EU, the Digital Services Act, that actually is putting together a kind of framework for how social media and platforms that have organic content on them should be governed, what kind of bodies should be established. You already mentioned the idea of, what do these look like? Are these councils? Are these bodies? Or this? That's where I just say, honestly, we really took it serious up front and before, quite honestly, we had to, by establishing the oversight board. So we feel very, very proud of that body. And I wanted to kind of like double down on very specifically the kinds of things that they're looking at. They've looked at cases such as individuals who post bare chest and naked breast and nipples in solidarity for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, that by our community standards previously would have been flagged and taken down. Why? Because we're not a platform of pornography. We're a platform that takes those things down. But you can obviously see there's nuance here. But these are new platforms on the face of this planet. So how do you build a system that would understand the nuance of someone that is posting a nipple for pornographic means, or someone that's doing it for science and or solidarity around medical intervention? The oversight board took that case. They took a series of cases in the aggregate and determined that we, Meta, need to harden our policies and that we do need to put the nuances there and then build the product in a way that will best understand it. Whether that is, sorry, all this tech speak.
I got you. No, I'm translating, so keep going.
Yeah, whether it's interstitials, the things that just pop up on your screen, that companies build as a product and in a kind of a design feature on the platform. They basically kicked it back to us and said, no, you need to harden your policies. Furthermore, this isn't the same categorically as pornography. These are the types of things that they're grappling with.
So to translate really quickly, so what that is, that's a couple of things. One, that's content moderation. And so audience, you're going to hear that word a lot now in society, not just with this tour and not just in this conversation, but content moderation. It is the catchphrase of the year, right? And what does that look like? And audience, I've been trying to teach you about content moderation because, Chris, you mentioned about community guidelines. It's all about keeping the community safe.
Yeah, our community standards.
Community standards about keeping the community safe. And what we mean by that is keeping the community safe for not having to see bare, naked breast or a chest, right? That's because one could be taking offense to that.
Absolutely.
But now we're getting to the idea of audience, artificial intelligence, and big data. And so what Chris is saying with this governance board is when it means hardening the policies, what that means is, what is this computer learning here, right? So can this computer begin to learn off the data? The data, audience, you've heard me explain this, for this set is pictures. Can now the computer learn from a picture that this picture is about breast cancer awareness versus this is about pornography? And then once that computer can understand the nuance of that, it could kick back, this is a prohibitive video or content because this is pornographic versus this is allowed because this is about awareness of breast cancer.
Absolutely.
And that's what we mean about content moderation and the importance of content moderation, but also the importance of getting it right.
Absolutely.
But this is why we need more people involved in this conversation to help us be additive to make sure that there's enough data sets, pictures, whatever the case may be, that the computer and the machine can learn off, that then can spit it out.
These are elements.
But then we also need to have the question of this, what we're going to address on this tour, of the human aspect of it, because humans also too are on the end deciding what is and what isn't pornographic material versus what is awareness for cancer research, which is the importance of the nuance and understanding and keeping community safe. And so, audience, this is what we mean by that.
And I love how you put that all together. But the funny thing is that the oversight board is 23 individuals. Okay, well, maybe some people interpret it as Mark Zuckerberg alone was doing that, and then obviously people who work in the company doing content moderation under our teams. Once again, we've invested tremendous amount of money behind content moderation. We take this very seriously. I don't remember very specifically what the dollar amount is, but I definitely know it's north of $40 billion over the life of the kind of content moderation apparatus that we've established in our company and what we invest into it because we take it serious. But the reality is that the oversight board is only the first step. I think this is the fascinating thing for me. I was in government, as you know. I was at the White House and I was at the Small Business Administration. I worked on Capitol Hill in the House, and it's fascinating how we stop. Actually, I don't know that we do stop. We don't realize that all of these federal agencies that kind of govern our society at the federal level and then the state level and at the local level, not all of them have always existed. There's a constitution that has established certain things, and then over time there have been amendments and there have been authorizations for this new entity, this new organization to be stood up, right? So if you think about during the Obama years, like the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, was stood up. That was very new. That's not an old agency. This is kind of how you have to think about governance of the social media platforms and the internet.
Well, let's think about the governance of that, because I want to stick to content now, because now we're talking about breast cancer versus nudity. So now I want to actually use a real life example that's been in pop culture that actually now is translating into how should Meta or entities that participate in the metaverse, now the term is, be protected. I had another question that came up this week on radio, on air, and it was around that episode of Black Mirror. The most famous, I think probably the most famous and important episodes of Black Mirror was when the star friend of mine, Anthony Mackie, I would love to see if we can get him to participate in some capacity. It was he and another gentleman where in the Black Mirror they put on their version of an Oculus, a VR headset, and when they went into the gaming system, when they were in the physical realm, they presented as heterosexual and heterosexual presenting individuals. But then once they put the VR sets on and then they went into the gaming system, their avatar changed. They became caricatures. But then also, too, there's characters fell in love with each other and then they end up having sex with each other, right? And so the question that I was asked, today was, is there policies associated when it comes to those type of dynamics, like in the metaverse, right? Because I always talk about, no matter what it's meta in the metaverse, there still is an emotional connection that an individual is experiencing
Absolutely.
when they're inside. And that's why it's important when we look at the dynamic of like sexual harassment or physical assault. Should that be governed? Because when you do remove the headset, when you do remove the Oculus, you still went through a traumatic experience. And then who should be held accountable for that? I'm just curious, Chris, are these conversations that you guys are having at Meta, is these conversations you guys are having in the big tech community? Because I got to be honest with you, this is a conversation I want us to have on this tour.
Yes, I cannot stress this enough. These are very serious conversations, and I feel honestly really enthusiastic and really heartened. The reason why I'm kind of slowing down, because this is one of those places where very genuinely I can give you a affirmative. We are grappling with these big issues every day. Our organization and the company at large, we have a whole host of individuals who are tackling these issues. The governance of the metaverse is a wide open conversation. Let me kind of put a couple of distinctions on some things here. So when we talk about the metaverse is actually the way you think about the internet, right? Originally it was Web 2.0, and we're moving into this Web 3.0. The internet is not just one thing. The internet is a bunch of individuals who've built back-end structures that pull it all together to kind of give us the experiences that we know of today. The metaverse is going to be the same thing. So particularly when we talk about the metaverse, we're talking about what we as Meta are going to build to contribute to the outgrowth and the build of the metaverse. Because the metaverse, if you can think about it, is going to be an environment. So we have our Horizon Worlds, which is kind of an application and a set of softwares that have been pulled together where people can go in and get the exact experiences we want them to have as Meta. But down the line, there are going to be other industry partners. You, for instance, could set up and say, hey, this is the kind of metaverse ecosystem and environment that I want to set up. So I just wanted to be very clear about that. and not to go too deep into this conversation, because we're going to have some experts on in this tour. I'm really excited about this. There's the conversation around mixed reality. There's a conversation around AR, VR, which is augmented.
Talk about mixed reality, just for people to understand that. Just define it, and then...
Totally. So mixed reality is the idea of, if you put on, let's say, some glasses right now, you still see everything as is in reality, but you might see something that pops up and it says, hey, go into this restaurant here because they have a deal, and based off of some things that you've done before, that might be of interest to you. So the mixed reality is the idea of kind of extending some of what goes on in the internet, but in a visual manner. Okay. Then you get into the AR, VR, like that world, the virtual reality world. Fundamentally is a world that is kind of made up. I think most people are pretty familiar with what a virtual reality world is. It's when you think about video games, you put on a headset and it puts you in a driver's seat of a car, McLaren, or puts you in a war field on some of these games. That's kind of what virtual reality is. When we think about the metaverse is going to be a lot of these components all together. So I just wanted to be very kind of clear about that to help people understand. And it's still early, right? The thing is, the metaverse isn't even fully here yet. We have just invested. We said that this is something that we want to do. We have our Oculus headset and products that we have that people can use to do it. We've seen the cool commercials where the woman is actually on the mixing board and she's building out a track with some friends. She's got a symphony next to her and they're all working in that. You see doctors using and figuring out how to perform surgeries. I mean, there's a world of reality, of possibilities, and opportunities with where that can go. But to get back to the point that you made and the question that you have, yes, the governance of the metaverse is a really tricky conversation. But let me just start back where we started from. This is why our fundamental premise is we don't have the answers. We cannot determine for a new ecosystem, a new existence in this virtual reality world that we should set those standards. We need users to provide constant feedback. We need people to take control of their own existence within these spaces. But these are real-time discussions that are evolving. And a big part of the reason why we actually wanted to partner with you, because of yourself and other people in your ecosystems who can be informing us, giving us the insights that we need around this to better understand it. And guess what? It's still so early.
Well, let's go there. Let's go there now about feedback, because I think this is a good place to land right now, because the feedback I get, one, when I travel across the country, and also two, on the radio show, what I'm noticing is a very split dynamic of opinion when it comes to big tech, AI, machine learning, and big data. I usually see white people and individuals in the majority most excited about AI, who are normally more pro-technology, are really excited about the use of it. And the feedback across the country and the callers I get and the DMs I get are from people of color and other marginalized communities who are afraid of this type of technology and are more hesitant to it. I know we're going to discuss all of this on the tour, and this isn't enough time to really break it all down. Sure. But why do you think people in marginalized communities have a hesitancy and a concern? But also, two, why should marginalized communities and people of color be excited for the possibilities of it?
Yeah, it's a really, really big question. And look, ladies and gentlemen, folks, Mike Muse always asks the hard questions. Mm-hmm. I'll say this. This is kind of my personal opinion on this. Historically speaking, there have been challenges around access. The access to internet, when we're talking about the potential price points of certain innovations that come out, and that could be exclusionary. I want to give a shout out, actually, not just simply our governance VP, Brent Harris, and a whole subset of individuals in our company, Nick Clegg, our president, but I'll also call out Roy Austin, our first ever VP of Civil Rights. This is actually an individual. There's no other VP of Civil Rights across any social media company or technology company. So I want to shout him out in particular. And the reason why I bring him up in particular is because some of what you're talking about is this kind of nebulous conversation of civil rights, the idea of how do you represent marginalized communities and how are those voices elevated so that they are part of the strategies, the go-to-markets, the product development. This is what he and his team, and ours is governance. We work very closely to tackle these issues inside our company. So I would say, historically speaking, where you might find marginalized communities being hesitant or even reticent around technology is just from historical precedent, historical inaccessibility, if you will. What I will say around the possibility of this, let me give you a good example of one. When we're talking about the potential direction we're moving with, whether it be the metaverse, whether it be mixed reality, whether it be headsets and these kinds of things, we're getting into a new world of accessibility. So when we talk about marginalized communities, I think most of the time we may want to go into kind of the race and gender piece. Fair and fine. I'm a man of color as well, right? I'm a black man. But we're also talking about people with disabilities. So when you think about the use case, one of the coolest things that we have a use case around is the ability for what a mixed reality and virtual reality world can do for people who are disabled and who have accessibility issues. So we are looking at a lot of ways that people can use products in ways that they never have been before. And so I would only kind of flip it on its head to say that where people might be hesitant, give it some time, participate, engage, give all the feedback, be in someone's DM, send some notes or letters to whoever elected official, like elevate your voice, call into the My Muse radio show and ask the questions because you have the direct and open door with us and direct line. But I would say I'm more of an individual where we haven't been at the table for a lot of these conversations, particularly when these new innovations are being discussed and developed. Guess what? This is a big part of this partnership. That's why we have Mike Muse here.
Which is why I'm excited. And I wish, it's so funny, I usually say we're running out of time. I wish I had more time, but we actually are going to have more time. We're coming to a city near you, LA, New York, London. There may be some future stops added to as well. I just want to say to land that plane succinctly, from my opinion, which is why I'm excited to talk about this, because I don't want audience you to think that this is going to be a soapbox moment. I do believe there is a time for a soapbox and that needs to be had, and we will do that, but I'm also too big on pushing through to finding solutions. Absolutely. And then how can we look at this from an advantage of marginalized communities and people of color in particular? Think about it from a particular space of censorship, which is also the new big buzzword. A lot of times we want individuals to be flagged or taken down because we may be offended based upon a word, not really realizing that activists use social media tech platforms to rally around movements, and it's a rallying and it's a way to organize. So just as people who may be offended by your movement and your rally organization, they can flag you to be taken down. So you have to be mindful of censorship and really look at, are we just in our feelings, or is this causing true harm? Because that can really have an inverse effect on the movement building that a lot of civil rights, you used that word earlier, organizations are doing. I like to look at it from a positive place for marginalized communities and people of color, is because when it comes to marketing, AI and big tech, you can do segmented and targeted marketing now to attract different users. I'm so fed up with media and Hollywood and consumer good products having marketing for Black people, marketing for Latinos, marketing for LGBTQA, marketing for women. Because what happens is it disadvantages so many people. Why? How come if someone just enjoys sparkling water, they can't be targeted? You don't have to live in the suburbs to enjoy sparkling water. Right. But if I'm a Black man, I have a sparkling water business, I want you to target Black people that you can identify that love sparkling water, just as people in the suburbs who may love sparkling water. That's a really bad example, folks, but you get it because time is running out. But really in particular about fashion, right? I think fashion is such a universal appeal that has nothing to do with race and or now we're looking at gender. And so these are things that can help particular color fashion designers be able to get their pieces and products seen. Absolutely. And because Meta and Instagram, you guys have e-commerce, which is all the craze now. How can we push these big tech platforms who exist in e-commerce to create better strategic AI targeted marketing so that our products can be seen with those in the majority? So folks, this is what this tour is about.
All about it.
This is what this conversation is about, and we are so excited. Chris, any final words in 30 seconds?
No, not at all, man. Other than I'm just really excited. These are very meaningful conversations that need to be had. And what I'm really looking forward to is who we can bring along in these conversations. We don't want to be the sole voice making these decisions. We need people to participate. We need all types of leaders, all types of thought leaders, all types of people who have a stake in this to join us in these conversations. So look forward to partnering with you.
Super excited. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a tour. Come see us on the road. Thank you, audience. You've been amazing. Chris, I look forward to partnering with you and launching this, and I'm excited to get out there and have these tough conversations, bro.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Yo, so next time, audience. Peace.